Okay, great. Okay, now we've got it recording. So we'll have this for everybody. And you know, I will also send a copy of the slides. So you'll have the slides too. All right, so I'm going to go over the screener dates. I'm going to talk to you about the dyslexia training now that we're getting closer to time for that. I want to talk to you about IRPs. Again, we've gotten a little bit more clarification on that, so I want to make sure we take a minute to go over that. Of course, intervention resources, what data you need to be looking at this point in the year, and then the questions, because we did have some questions that were sent in over the last month since we've met, and so I've typed those up, so I'll also send those out to you. We'll go over them, and then I'll send them out to you as well. Okay, so the first grade dyslexia screener date is October 22nd. And so that means that the first graders need to be screened by that date. So now that it's September, go ahead and be thinking about your calendar and when you want that to happen. If you want that to happen towards the end of the month, the end of September, the 1st of October. But go ahead and try to have all of your first graders screened by October 22nd. And then keep in mind that you will send out a parent notification of your students that failed the screener. So however you set that up, we have a sample parent letter on our website that you can send. Yeah, if y'all just make sure you stay muted, that'll help with any background noise. Yeah, I think Kimberly, I think that fixed it. But yeah, you will notify parents if a student failed. Yes, I'm going to repeat it. Thank you. If a student failed that screener, you will notify parents. So you can send home the sample letter that we have on the website. It can be a phone call. You can have parents come up, but they have to be informed that they failed the screener and what that means. So right now for our first graders, you should go back and look and see if they failed the kindergarten screener. If they failed the kindergarten screener, they failed the first grade screener. If they have not been identified for interventions, this would be a good time to probably have that TST meeting, look at all of your available data and see what decision needs to be made for that child. It might be time to move them to a tier 2 intervention and provide support. So, and you can inform parents of that. That's the purpose of the screener. We want to identify any students that need interventions. And then, of course, there's the kindergarten date, and then your submission date is May 6th. Here are the available screeners. Those have not changed. Amplify, Dibbles, Fast Bridge, Lexercise, the screener from Mississippi College, and the screener from William Carey. Any questions about the screeners? We'll go over more in October when it's time when we finish that up, that first grade day. Okay, so our dyslexia awareness training, we know this is a new House bill that went into effect July 1. It is for all teachers. So I've gotten several emails over the last few weeks, is it just for K1 teachers? Is it just for reading teachers? And the legislation says all teachers and paraprofessionals. So keep that in mind as we are rolling out the videos. Jada and I are finishing up the videos this week and next week. So we'll have those ready. We'll post them on the website. We'll send them out on the MTSS network email, and we will also send them out on the listserv. So they'll be everywhere. So you'll be able to find them. We are doing 4 one-hour sessions. And so, it's up to your district how y'all want to roll that out. If you want to have them do, 1 hour in the afternoon, if you want to have them, do it during their PLC time, however you want to do it. Just make sure that, you are planning for that and you have those 4-hour sessions completed by the end of the school year. So we're saying by the end of April, go ahead and plan on having those teachers go through the training. So All right, I mentioned that everyone has to be trained. I would include your music, your PE teachers. I would include everyone. And another reason for that, well, two reasons. One, it's everybody that's coming in contact with that child, and they're available for CEUs at the end. So I know a lot of times our specials teachers, they don't always go through the same trainings we do. So this will also give them an opportunity to get the CEUs they're needing. Okay, let's see. Make sure I cover everything. Okay. Okay. Districts may request on-site training. So Jada and I can come to your district and provide that training. So just think about, what that would look like. If you want us to come, like I said, 1 hour in the afternoon, if you want us to do like the first 2 hours, and then we could come back in the spring and do the second 2 hours. Think about what that would look like and who your audience is going to be. So if you want that on-site training, is it going to be just elementary teachers this time, your secondary teachers? So those are just some things to be thinking through if you're wanting that on-site training. Because it's just the two of us, so we'll do our best to come, but those are just some logistic things to think about if you're wanting this in person. Okay. Teachers will receive a certificate of completion at the end of the training. So what is required are the 4 hours. So at the end of the 4 hours, I've got the spreadsheet on the website. So principals will fill out that spreadsheet, have teacher signatures. You will submit that. So all of these teachers will receive a certificate of completion. But if they want CEUs, you have to have a minimum of 5 hours. So that 5th hour, we're going to do like a case study, and do like some question answers at the end of that 5th hour, so teachers can get CEUs. So keep that in mind as well. So everybody can get the certificate of completion, but if they want CEUs, then they have to do that 5th hour. Okay, so the law does not specify that the MDE is the only person that can do the training, but it does specify who can do the training. So it has to be a certified academic language therapist, and it has to be that dyslexia therapist with a 203 license. And I think some of the reasoning behind that is to make sure, it's somebody that is familiar with the Mississippi laws, the Mississippi, the therapy programs that we use, but that's how it is written up in legislation. Here it is. And so that's what we're implementing. Okay. If you are looking to use someone other than MDE, you need to submit their teaching license that shows that they've got the 203, their current CALC certification, and then an outline of what you're going to cover during those hours. And that form is also on the website. Yes, Jamie. So when I say all, I am referring to K-12, all teachers. Okay, any other questions on the dyslexia awareness trainings? Okay. Yes, every district is required to do the training. So it doesn't specifically say pre-K, Karen, but I would say if you have pre-K in your building, because it says all teachers, then I would include your pre-K in that as well. There are a lot of characteristics to look for in your preschool students, so I would definitely include them. Okay, so if you use the MDE presentation, does the facilitator have to be a therapist? If you're using the MDE presentation, no, you would just play the videos. Okay, so like if you have your staff come in, or if you're doing it like during a PLC, you would just have somebody play the video and then the teachers would watch it. The form, the Excel spreadsheet, the principal will sign off on that. We'll sign off that all the teachers have watched the video. Good questions. Okay, where do we sign up? So you don't have to sign up to watch the videos. So what you'll do is you'll send in that spreadsheet afterwards, after you watch the videos. If you want on-site training, you can fill out the PD request form that's on the dyslexia page. Okay, anything else? Okay, Ashley, the videos, we will post them on the website. We're finishing them up. Hopefully this week, next week, we'll have them finished. We'll post them on the website. We'll send them out on the network emails, and it'll go out to on all the listservs. So the principals will get it, superintendents will get it. It'll be everywhere. You'll be able to find them. Okay. Okay, IRP guidance. We know last year we didn't have those good cause exemption studies. Okay, let me answer Pam's question real quick before we move on. How do CEUs recipients get the case study? We will have a format to send that to you. Yes, so we'll work all that out. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. So we'll get all that information to you so they can get the case study, you know, whether it's an article, we'll get all that. We won't leave you in the dark. Okay. All right, so, looking at IRPs, they're created for students who demonstrate a substantial reading deficit in grades K-3 and also our fourth graders. So that's where I was. So they do not have, we do not have our good cause exemption students this year. So what you have are students that potentially failed the third grade reading assessment, but then they were promoted to fourth grade. So we really have that in place of the good cause exemption. So you still need to go ahead and meet on those kids. So think about your fourth graders. If they were promoted, even though they failed the third grade assessment, go ahead and have a meeting on them. It may be where if they had taken the assessment the second or the third time, they would have passed it, but we don't know because they only took it the one time. So go ahead, have a meeting on them and see if they would, you know, benefit from that tier 2 or tier 3 intervention. You see this next bullet point, the TST is going to decide who needs an IRP. And this is how I always explain it, or how I explain it to myself. If you have a student, kindergarten through third grade, and those fourth grade students, if they're needing a tier 3 reading intervention, they also need an IRP. Okay, so think about it in those terms. If they need a tier 3 reading intervention, then they also need an IRP as part of that documentation. Our IRPs, we worked on this last year to get them aligned to our documentation packet, so it's not as much overcarry with the information, so now it's embedded within our documentation packet. In addition to what's in the documentation packet, parents should be given the student read at home plan, which is on the website. Here is some additional guidance on that. And so when all of this, of course, is on our website, but then also when you get the slides, you'll have the links that will work for you. But this is what that documentation looks like. And it's guidance, it's questions that you should be asking as you're looking at those students and making decisions for those students that are now in fourth grade. Are we utilizing the MDE cut scores for universal screeners? Yes, so we still have that link on the website. If you need that, I can put that in my email. Let me add that right now, the cut score link, so you'll have that. Yes, continue to use that. You know, you use that cut score link plus your other available data. So you're looking, let's say you're using STAR, you're looking at the cut score from the STAR, plus also how they're performing in the classroom, how they performed in years past, if they're first graders, if they failed that dyslexia screener, you're looking at all that available data. Okay, let's see. Okay, yes, Susie. So everyone will be notified about the dyslexia training. It will go on our listserv, and then it'll go out on, they're called Ed Updates, and it goes to all the superintendents, curriculum coordinators, principals. It goes out to everybody, and it'll also be on our website. I've added a whole section that's just for the dyslexia awareness training, so it will all be there on our dyslexia page. Okay. Okay, so can a student who failed be tier 1? So yes, if you had a student that failed last year and you are looking at that data and they are on grade level, you can make the decision to move them to tier 1. You just want to almost like create a watch list. And so at any point in time during the school year, you can go back, check in, make sure they're still doing okay. If it looks like they're dropping behind, go ahead and bump them up and let them get started back in interventions. Yes. So good question. The TST decides if they need tier 2 or tier 3 based on that data. Yes. So looking at the data, make the decision of what is the appropriate tier for that kid. Okay, Kimberly, you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yes. Okay. So it says if a student failed the test but was promoted to 4th grade. So we have some students that made like a 1 on the test, and based on MTSS, they didn't all populate, but based on, I think it's number 4 on MTSS, if they made the lowest level on the test, then we should meet on them. Well, 2 is a failure too. What if they failed it and they weren't promoted? So either way, we're going to meet on them if they made a 1 or a 2.
Yes, I would go ahead and meet on them. If they were in that lowest performing area, go ahead and have that meeting.
Yeah, because the numbers are going to be astronomical.
Yeah, they will. They will. And too, and like, I know I've gotten some questions where, the numbers are so high. You can bring in those teachers, and like if I've got a teacher and I've got 8 or 10 kids, go ahead, bring them in and just have a quick meeting.
Yeah.
And then once you're able to determine, okay, what tier everybody's in, then when you come back, then you can have more in-depth conversations. But just for these initial meetings, go ahead and try to just get them knocked out, because we know it's a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, there should be. I've got a picture of the Read at Home plan that, let's see. There it is. This is what it should look like. Like this is just a cover sheet of like the comprehension one. I was trying to see. Yeah, this date says 8/12/19. And I can pull up the website too in a minute. Okay, let me make sure I don't miss anything, and then we'll pull that website up and cover that. Yes, it's still available in Spanish. Okay, so we have the alignment checklist just to make sure as you're going through, you're doing IRPs, that you've got everything covered. So everything just aligns here with this checklist. You can see how it all evens out there, so you can utilize that. Okay, let's see if I can get to the website. I'm going to try multitask. I'm going to pull up my other. May not let me while I'm presenting. Let me do stop presenting. Well, I'm stuck. It won't let me do anything. Let's see if I try this. It won't let me pull it up, y'all. It's doing something crazy. Okay, let me get this back plugged in. Hey, Jada, if you're on the call, can you try to pull up the Read at Home plan and see what the date is on there?
Yes, let me look. I think that's the most current because I pulled that up the other day, but let me double check.
Okay, all right. She's going to check for us. Okay, let me get back. But I do know I saw it in Spanish when I was looking at it the other day. Okay, let's look. All right, on the MSIS question, do we need to put something in MSIS for our third grade reading failures and our flashers and some others also? Okay, so for MSIS, you can, what you need to update is who populated on your list. So on your MSIS list, if they populated, then you have to go in and document that. Now, your other students, like those other third graders that maybe didn't populate on that list or any of your other flashers, if you're moving them to tier 3, then you want to add them to MSIS. You need to go in and put them in MSIS. So they would be like as a new person. Yeah.
Lori,
Uh-huh.
how you doing? This is Devon Shay. That was my question.
Okay.
So the only students that we would put in MSIS are those that we move to tier 3?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah, not your tier 2 kids. So it'll be the kids that populated on your MSIS list and any new kids you're moving to tier 3.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, you're welcome. Yes, so that's who has to go in MSIS. All right, so let me say it again. If they populated on the MSIS list, then you have to go in, do your documentation of, if they are going to be a tier 3 student, document the date that you had your meeting, those 20-day kids. You have to go in and document that. Then any new kids that are going to start receiving a tier 3 kid, let's say they've never repeated, they're not on any MSIS list, but we know we've got to move them to a tier 3 intervention, then they will go into MSIS. And that may not be right now. That may not be until October or November when you move them to tier 3. But when you do that, then that's when they will go into MSIS. Yeah, so I'm not sure why the date was 2020, but the one on the website says 19. I'll have to look into that. I'll check with literacy on that. That's literacy's document. So let me check with them and see if there's one floating around that's that happens sometimes. Sometimes we create a document or we update it, but then it doesn't get updated on the website. So let me see if there is a 2020 version that just needs to be updated on the website, because that does happen. Let me check with them.
And I was going to say, Lori, that the one with the pink cover, which is where I pulled out that screenshot of the comprehension piece, that
Yeah.
one says new beside it, and then there's one below it too. On that, there's a link below it too. But I had put them with the new, but I'm not sure, like you said about the years. So I guess we need to double check about that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jada. Yeah, we'll double check on the years. But what I like about the Read at Home plan, it's very specific. So if I've got a student, let's say my student's been identified as needing help with decoding and phonological awareness, well, then I can go straight to those sections and print those out and send those home. So me as mom, I know what I need to work on with my child. Yes. And so Ashley, MSIS, they are making a lot of changes. They're really trying to streamline it, and they are working on it. And I know we are having some major issues with not being able to get stuff entered, or people are showing up on the MSIS list that have never shown up before. So if y'all are having anything crazy like that happen, just document it. Just keep it in with your files. Just document, the date that you tried to go in and enter that information and it wouldn't let you, or, anything where kids, we've had some SPED kids that have populated that have never populated before. So just document that and keep up with that in your notes. And until they get the new MSIS 2.0 rolled out, that's the best advice I have heard, and I'm sharing that with y'all. Okay.
And hey, Lori, so
Yeah.
a couple of people have said that they pulled it up a couple of weeks ago ago and there were no students on there, but then checked it again a few days later and they had populated. So maybe, you know, if there's no students, just kind of keep checking because some crazy things are happening, like you said.
Yes, Jada, that's exactly right. We have heard that from several districts. So, you know, as I think test scores are coming back, some students are populating that did not populate before. And so you're not going to be able to have that meeting within that 20-day window. So that's okay. Just as soon as you can, have your meeting and get that documented. Okay. All right, Casey, it looks like you have a question about the Read at Home plan. You can just drop it in there when you're ready. Okay. So y'all know by now we've got our state approved intervention list. We have the academic list, behavior list. Last month, I went through all of those with y'all. Here are the links. You know, so feel free to go to those websites and visit those lists. I'm not going to go through them all again for you. Okay, so the resources that I shared with you last month, they are here. One of your fellow teammates out in the districts asked for a Tier 2 supplemental instruction sheet, and I thought that was a great idea, and that was not something we have created before. So I'm going to share that with y'all. You will have it in the slides, and then I'm also going to send it in the email, so you'll have it. And remember, it's just guidance. So if you want to take it, add to it, change it, I'll send it as a Word document and you can use it and make it your own. Okay, so y'all know I love this teacher support team timeline. It breaks everything down that you should do month by month. So for August, let's just kind of look at it real quick and make sure that we've covered everything. Review MTSS list. Those first 20 days, students have your meeting. You know, schedule your meeting, have your meeting. Review all of your available data on your students who ended the year Tier 2 or Tier 3. Begin developing that intervention schedule and obtain a master schedule to assist in developing your intervention schedule, because your interventionists are going to need that. They're going to need that master schedule so they know when Miss Smith is going to recess or when her kids are in PE. So just making sure she has that. So that's August. Now, thinking for September, there's a little bit more on here for September. So ensure all students have been met on that were on the MTSS list. Utilize your 3A of the documentation packet. That's just the form that shows the decisions that you're making for your students, that you document that you've had the meeting, the decisions that were made. Okay, so all TST members should be present at these meetings. So look at your team members: principal, assistant principal, counselor, interventionist, classroom teacher, speech path, and whoever else you have if you have a dyslexia therapist. And you're going to have people that float in and out. So like your principal and assistant principal may not be in every may not be in every TST meeting. You know, your counselor may have something come up where she has to step out. That's okay. But, you know, this is your core team that you want to try to have in your meetings. Look at your speech path. Your speech path isn't going to have to sit in there all day, but you do want her to come in for your students who are receiving speech. Same for gifted. Gifted doesn't have to be in there all day, but if she's got a kid that's receiving Tier 3, she probably needs to step in and give an update. If she can't step in because it's in the middle of her class time, just have her send a note. You know, Johnny's doing great in our gifted time. You know, I'll keep you updated if anything changes. Okay, recommendations should be made. So thinking about September, we've been in school for a month. You know, thinking about, do we want to continue that child in Tier 3, move them to Tier 2, or move to Tier 1 and continue monitoring? That was the question earlier. You're going to have some kids that were receiving Tier 3 last year, but they may be holding their own this year so far, and you want to move them to Tier 1. You know, just make sure you're documenting those decisions. So now it's September, students should begin their intervention time. You know, it's time. Let's go ahead and get that rolling. If you haven't started it yet, it's time to go ahead and get those interventions started. Notify your parents as students are being placed in Tier 2 and Tier 3. You know, and it may be where the classroom teacher does a phone call, the interventionist. You know, so early in the year, you may not want to go ahead and do a face-to-face meeting. You might want to give them some time in the intervention program. But definitely notify them. You know, we have sample parent letters. It's Appendix D that you can send home, letting them know that their child has started interventions. Okay, Casey, I see your question now. On the MDE website, under literacy, under resources for parents, the parent read at home plan, it says new, and it has the 2019 date. Right underneath that, here we go, is the parent read at home plan, the print friendly version, and it is the 2020 version. So maybe that's the difference. The print version, when they updated it, is probably the newest version. But yes, so both of those are available. And great, she put the link there for you. Thank you, Casey. Goodness. We all got to chip in and help each other. Okay, so we've talked about the shared leadership checklist. That is there for you as you're having your meetings. Here is another just data review form that you can use. I went over all of these last month. So if you have any questions about any of these forms, let me know, because I want to get to the new one. The new one is this one. So it is the Tier 2 documentation form. And so I just put at the top teacher name, student name, school, and the date of the meeting. So as you have students that are moving to Tier 2, because we know we've got all of those documentation forms for Tier 3, but we didn't necessarily have something for Tier 2. So some districts were using the Tier 3 form, but now you have this. So it's just a place, and like I said, you can change it. If you want to add more columns to it, you can do that. But it's just a place to collect the information, you know, their current grades, any of their assessment data, what is their identified deficit area, what interventions have been utilized up until this point. Does the student show success through progress monitoring? Is the student transferring? To me, this question is so important. Is the student transferring what they are learning in Tier 2 to the classroom? Because that's our ultimate goal. We got to provide these interventions so then they can implement it and use it in the classroom. You know, beginning date, ending date. So I know it says complete as students are moving to Tier 2, but you can definitely use this as students are moving to Tier 3. So like I said, take it, adapt it, and use it. It's just another resource for you and to help you meet your needs. But it's on my list, and I will send that to you. Family guides. We have gotten so many requests for family guides that I have not been able to get them out to everybody yet. So if you have sent me a submission where you are requesting family guides, I haven't forgotten about you. We are going to get those to you. So if you haven't heard from me about them, you'll hear from me in the next few days, so we can get those out to you. We do still have some available, but not as many as what we've had because we've given so many away, which we're so happy about. So if you do need some additional family guides, send me an email and I'll let you know and see if we still have enough to cover what you need. Okay, so before I open it up to questions, these are some questions that I received over the month that I wanted us to go over. And then we'll open it up to questions. So can a teacher-driven intervention pulling from evidence-based programs be considered research-based, or must it be a scripted intervention? So let me get my little list pulled up. There it is. So that is going to be a district decision on how you provide your interventions. The important thing to remember is the intervention meeting the student's deficit area is the progress monitor showing their growth over time. All right. So we know we have a lot of amazing teachers. They've used a lot of great programs over the years. And so some of those teachers are kind of pulling and doing their own thing. And so, that's fine if that's what your principal and your district team has approved. You can do that. So just make sure that it's meeting the students' needs. You're covering those deficit areas. Okay, I think we may have addressed this. According to the third grade guidance that was sent out last spring, the fact that there are no good cause exemptions, is it up to the TST to decide if those fourth grade students receive tier 2 or tier 3? Yes, so that's a TST team decision. And I would recommend just looking at all of your available data. All right, I'm looking for the targeted support plan for behavior that used to be in the MTSS documentation packet. Okay, so we do not have a specific behavior intervention plan form as part of MTSS. We do not have a functional behavior assessment either. So I have been working with Ginger Kessler in the Office of SPED to get some of those forms updated and added to our documentation packet. We're not there yet. We're definitely working on that. Let's see. Most districts have developed their own over time. And then there's also a set in the SPED procedure manual. So when I send y'all the question and answers, I'm going to have the link to that. So the link will send you straight to the procedural manual. And so you can get those forms if you need them. It's just not something that we have in the documentation packet just yet. Okay, do you recommend using a different intervention for tier 2 academics than for tier 3? Or is an additional time in a one-on-one setting with the same intervention sufficient? Okay, so I would recommend using something different for tier 3, but I know that's not available for a lot of districts, and I understand that. A lot of districts increase the amount of time in the intervention. They increase their focus. They do it in a smaller group size. So that is allowable. You can. So the answer is yes, you can do that. We know that, research shows that if what I'm doing in tier 1 is not working, then I need to try something else. But we know a lot of districts have adopted certain curriculum that they're using at the tier 1 level. Then they're increasing that at tier 2, and then they're adding additional support for a tier 3 intervention. So if you have any other specific questions about that, y'all reach out to me, but it is allowable. You can do it. Once again, it's one of those district decisions. Okay, do tier 3 interventions have to be implemented by someone different than the classroom teacher? And does it have to be in a pull-out setting? Let's see. Tier 3 interventions do not have to be completed by someone other than the classroom teacher, and it does not have to be a pull-out situation. We know a lot of schools and districts don't have interventionists, and so it has to be completed by the classroom teacher. Okay, does a student with dyslexia have to be in the tier process and go through tier 2 and tier 3 before getting a 504 IEP? Or does the parent simply have to request a 504 meeting with their documentation of outside testing and skip the tier 2 and tier 3 process altogether? Okay, that's a long question. So when students bring in outside testing, we recommend that you have a MET meeting. So as soon as you are bringing in, if you have a parent that brings in dyslexia testing from outside, I said MET, but really TST. Have a TST meeting. Look at the data, look at the report, look at the available data, and then you're going to determine, what is the next step. Does that child need tier 2 or tier 3 interventions? Y'all know if you've been working with dyslexic students for any time, they all vary. The level of supports vary for all of our dyslexic students. So you really need to take the time and look at what's going to meet their needs. For some of those students, it may be a tier 3 intervention, especially if you've got a dyslexia therapist. that is there and can work with that student. And then, if they need a 504, if they need an IEP, follow your process. So all of our districts have that 504 policy. So, look at your policy. Most policies state that they have to look at IDEA first. Do they qualify for an IEP? If they don't qualify for an IEP, then you look at a 504. But that's not a blanket statement. So all of our kids are different. Some kids you may have come in with a report and it's very glaring. They've got a major gap between their IQ and their reading performance, and they need to, you need to go straight and have a MET meeting. And they may need to have those special education services right away. So just know, the best thing to do, have a TST meeting, look at all of your available data, and make decisions for each individual student. Okay, I think, this is my last question, and then I'll open it up. Do we have to use the RTI forms that are supplied through MDE, or can we use other forms from other states? Texas has some that are, great. They're very user-friendly. So the way it's written in our policy, schools and districts must use our documentation packet at a minimum. So districts can change the format, the letterhead, and meet their needs, but they can't take out any of the required information. So, like, for example, we require vision and hearing screeners, so you can't take that part out, but we don't require a teacher narrative, but you could add that part in. So essentially, however your district wants it to look, that is fine, but all of our information has to be there. So everything that we require to see in our documentation packet has to be there. Change the format, sure, but just don't take any of our pieces out. Okay, any questions? We've shared a lot. We've covered a lot, I think.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
I'm still stuck on the whole MDE cut scores for screeners. I don't know what that is. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Yes. So there was a guidance document that came out, I want to say it wasn't last year, it may have been the year before, but it shows cut scores for each of the state approved universal screener. And so it's showing you basically if students are in that cut score area, then those are the kids that would be identified as needing interventions, or that would be identified as having that substantial reading deficiency. And so it just kind of helps guide you as you're making decisions for your students. So use that piece, and then, use your other data points too.
Well, can we get a copy of that?
Yes, I'm going to send you the link. So when I send the email out with everything, it'll be in there. It's a link, and you'll see it, and you can go to that. Okay, do repeaters who are in Tier 3 but scored on Watch and Universal Screener also need an IRP at this time? Yes. If they are receiving Tier 3 for reading, and they're in that K3 window, and they're those fourth graders that we talked about earlier, they do need an IRP. And I would say, and I know Jada, if Jada would unmute, she would say, yes, we have our documentation we have to keep up with, and, we have all of our forms, but make sure that, we're meeting with the students, we're working with our students, get your interventions in place and start working with them. And then, we can get the documentation filled in as we go. I know I'm definitely one that I want to dot every I and cross every T. But let's go ahead, get those interventions rolling, and then we can, get the documentation done. Okay, anything else? And you can unmute too if you want to unmute, or you can drop it in the chat box. Got a few more minutes. Okay, our next meeting will be October 6th. That's the first Wednesday of October. We will meet then and just do updates and answer any of your questions. So, always send in your questions and, you know, we will try to answer them as soon as we can. And then we'll, of course, answer any of your questions during our office hours. Okay, well, if that's all, I'm going to stop recording.